You know that feeling when you're driving home on a route you've taken just like 1,000
Oh,
times?
yeah. The autopilot kicks in.
Right, exactly. You pull into your driveway, turn off the ignition, and realize you have absolutely zero memory of the last 5 miles.
It's actually a known phenomenon called highway hypnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, your brain recognizes a highly predictable pattern and essentially just, hands the wheel over to your subconscious. It frees up your active mind to wander.
Which is, I mean, it's a little unsettling when you realize it's happening even in the comfort of your own car.
Totally.
Now, I want you to imagine experiencing that exact same psychological blackout, but instead of a quiet Tuesday commute, you are standing inside a boxing ring.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a whole different level.
Right. There is another highly trained human being actively trying to separate you from your consciousness. The physical danger is extreme, and millions of people are watching your every move.
Which takes the concept of autopilot and places it in the most chaotic, high-pressure environment imaginable. The stakes just couldn't be higher.
And that is exactly the lens we're looking through today. Welcome to the deep dive. We're unpacking an incredibly raw, extensive interview transcript featuring elite boxer Ryan Garcia speaking with podcaster Chris Williamson.
It's a fascinating look into the mind of a modern sports enigma.
It really is. Our mission today is to peel back the curtain on the psychology of elite performance. We're exploring how childhood obsessions, sudden fame, and immense personal turmoil all combine. Okay, let's unpack this, because when Garcia describes his mental state during a high-stakes fight, it really shatters the illusion of the calculating strategic warrior.
It completely does. He describes a state of mind that is almost entirely devoid of active thought.
Really? No active thinking at all.
Pretty much. When he's performing at his absolute peak in the ring, he isn't consciously thinking or plotting 3 moves ahead. He relies almost entirely on instinct and intuition.
That's wild.
Yeah, he's just feeling momentum shifts. He maintains his emotional baseline by repeating incredibly simple internal mantras to himself like, stay focused, stay focused.
He actually shared a vivid anecdote from his last fight that illustrates this perfectly. He said he literally only snapped back into conscious reality in the 11th round.
Wait, the 11th?
The 11th round. For the 10 rounds prior, he was operating entirely on that highway hypnosis we were talking about.
That is over 30 minutes of
The-
intense physical combat just outsourced to his reflexes.
Exactly. And the only reason his conscious brain kicked back online in the 11th was because he got a little too comfortable. He lowered his hands to mess with his opponent, looked away, and immediately caught a massive right hand.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and the pain of that hit was the alarm clock. He said he thought to himself, okay, don't do that.
So that was the moment he woke up.
Right. But I have to push back on this a bit. Is it actually terrifying that the most dangerous, high-stakes moments of a fighter's life are essentially experienced on autopilot? I mean, if your active brain is turned off, aren't you a sitting duck?
You think so, but human brains optimize for the specific task at hand. To understand this, the source material draws a really brilliant contrast between boxing and chess.
Okay, like Magnus Carlsen.
Exactly, Magnus Carlsen. He's known for being able to remember exact, complex board positions from games he played when he was like 5 years old.
Which is just insane memory recall.
Right, because his brain optimizes for pure memory. Chess is an algorithmic environment where you have time to access your memory banks and make a conscious decision. Boxing is entirely different.
Because it's so fast.
Way too fast. If you take the time to consciously perceive a punch, search your memory for the right block, and then actively tell your muscles to move,
You're already knocked out.
you are unconscious on the canvas. So the brain, in its brilliance, actually shuts down the part responsible for complex conscious thought. It just routes the visual input directly to physical reaction.
Wow.
Yeah, it essentially robs the athlete of their memory of the event just to keep them safe.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. But, building a nervous system capable of doing that doesn't happen overnight.
Definitely not.
And that brings us to the architecture of his obsession. Because his origin story is staggering. He had 225 amateur fights as a kid.
225. That's a lifetime of experience before even turning pro.
I know. By age 16, he was completely homeschooled just to train full-time. And he carried this immense psychological burden, too. His uncle predicted Ryan was the chosen one the literal day he was born.
Placing that kind of absolute destiny on a child it creates a fascinating psychological environment.
It really does. And here's where it gets really interesting. It's how he approached problem solving as a kid. He was sparring someone who kept catching him with a very specific, tricky jab.
Okay, so he's getting frustrated in the ring.
Very frustrated. Now, a normal kid would probably go home, play video games, and just, let it go. But Ryan couldn't. He stayed up for hours in his room, obsessively visualizing the sequence of that jab over and over.
He was actively running the simulation in his head.
Over and over until he realized the kid was showing his jab with a specific step of his foot. So Ryan told his dad to call that kid back the very next day.
No way.
Yeah. He figured out that if he cut to the right, the exact moment the kid took that step, he would counter it. And he did it the next day, and it worked flawlessly.
What's fascinating here is how obsession acts as this kind of free discipline. We usually think of discipline as dragging yourself out of bed to do something you hate, right?
Right, like forcing yourself to go to the gym.
Exactly. But for someone with this level of singular obsession, Ryan didn't have to be forced to think about boxing. His brain literally couldn't stop. The discipline was free because it was a compulsion.
I love that phrase, free discipline.
It connects directly to how he views the sport now. He doesn't see boxing as just a violent brawl. He describes it like musical notes.
Musical notes.
Yeah. When an opponent does something unexpected or his timing is off, it just registers as an off note in a melody. His body naturally moves to resolve the dissonance and get the song back on track.
That is such a poetic way to look at a fist fight. But dedicating your entire childhood to that one pursuit carries a massive developmental cost.
No, absolutely. The toll of the fast track.
Right. Because he sacrificed standard teenage experiences, he realized he ended up making teenage mistakes in his 20s. And making a teenage mistake is way more destructive when you have millions of dollars.
Well, he talks about making his first $1 million by the time he was 19 or 20, and he immediately blew it.
Just gone.
Yep. Spent it on luxury cars, gambling, just feeding that sudden rush of extreme wealth.
But, the source points out something interesting. Learning a harsh financial lesson on your first million is arguably a blessing compared to learning it later. They reference Mike Tyson, who famously blew through a massive $100 million fortune.
That's a great point. It inoculates you against lifestyle inflation. You can see the maturity Ryan gained from that initial failure and how he structures his security now.
How so?
Well, he specifically refused to pay a six-figure bill for 3 months of 24/7 security.
Which seems kind of counterintuitive for a massive celebrity, right? You'd think he'd want a fortress.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But he recognized the psychological trap. He opts instead to surround himself with his core team, his brothers, his lifelong friends. It avoids both physical danger and the mental trap of sitting alone in a hotel room just doom scrolling on his phone.
So the paid guards protect the body but leave the mind completely isolated.
Exactly. Companionship isn't a luxury for him. It's a vital psychological guardrail to keep him grounded.
But even the strongest guardrails can break down. And for Garcia, a brutal convergence of life events hit him all at the exact same time.
It was an unbearable amount of pressure.
It was. We are talking about a divorce, his mother receiving a severe cancer diagnosis, and highly stressful custody issues, just spiraling into chaos.
And how he coped with that is a major part of this deep dive.
Right. To cope, he self-destructed. He turned heavily to alcohol. And what's wild is how he channeled that internal anger outward. Leading up to his fight with Devin Haney, he fully embraced this unpredictable villain persona.
He was really leaning into it.
Completely. He was showing up to press events wearing a shirt that said, "Murder on my mind." He acted out because he felt deeply, deeply disrespected by the boxing community.
And this intense period of anger and searching for control pushed him into some highly controversial territory. And before we get into this, we need to be very clear with you listening.
Yes, absolutely.
We are simply impartially reporting what is discussed in the source material. We are not endorsing, validating, or taking a side on any of these political or conspiratorial views. We're just looking at the human psychology under extreme stress.
Exactly. Strict neutrality here. So according to the interview, this spiral led him towards some extreme fringe beliefs. He claimed he had a vivid vision back in 2021 after the Luke Campbell fight of a beast coming out of the sea.
Which is a really intense image to grapple with.
It is. And this led him to research the woods of San Francisco and Bohemian Grove. He mentions encountering content from people like Alex Jones, and he developed this profound, explosive anger over allegations of global child sex trafficking.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's fascinating from a psychological standpoint. When someone experiences a total loss of control in their personal life, The brain desperately searches for order.
Like trying to make sense of the chaos.
Right. And finding a massive shadowy conspiracy can, paradoxically, be comforting
Yeah.
because it means someone is in control rather than life just being random and cruel.
That makes a lot of sense. And interestingly, his anger over this did ultimately lead to a tangible partnership with Tim Tebow's foundation to bring awareness to the actual issue of child exploitation.
Which is a positive outcome from a really dark period, but it brings up the concept of weaponized anger. In combat sports, a little bit of aggression is mandatory. It maintains your killer instinct.
It gives you an edge.
It does. But pure rage is different. Pure rage blinds you. He used a great analogy. If you get so furious that you shove someone on the sidewalk, you might not see the oncoming car that you just push them in front of.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, rage narrows your vision. In a fight, it means you lose the ability to see the counterpunch. You become incredibly dangerous, but also incredibly vulnerable.
Finding that balance between having an edge and being consumed by blind rage is just so difficult. And, that transition from chaos to control really mirrors his perspective on the business of boxing itself right now.
Boxing is definitely going through an identity crisis.
It really is. In the interview, he expresses deep frustration with the politics of the sport. Massive fights just aren't happening because promoters and fighters get greedy.
Right, there's too much red tape. He specifically pointed to the potential influence of Zuffa and the UFC stepping into boxing.
Yeah, because they're basically a corporate powerhouse. He sees the appeal of a structure that forces the best to fight the best. He wants boxing to trim the fat, but...
But he doesn't want it to lose its soul.
Exactly. He is fiercely protective of boxing's heritage. He wants to keep the grand pageantry, the theatrical walkouts, the custom shorts, the massive sponsor money.
He doesn't want it to become a sterile assembly line.
Right. So what does this all mean for you listening? If you're trying to understand the difference between boxing and other sports, think of boxing right now as an ancient medieval kingdom.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, it has these weird, deeply entrenched traditions and rival lords fighting over territory. Compare that to the sleek corporate efficiency of newer organizations like the UFC. The medieval kingdom is messy, but it commands a mythical respect.
And that mythical respect is exactly why influencer boxing is such a huge talking point right now.
Oh, for sure. Garcia's evolving opinion on Jake Paul is a perfect example. Initially, Garcia was a massive critic of him.
He felt guys like that were just tourists, right?
Exactly, disrespecting the sport.
Yeah.
But his opinion shifted dramatically. He actually respects Paul now.
What changed his mind?
He watched Jake Paul take a devastating full-power punch from Anthony Joshua. A punch that literally broke his jaw.
Ouch.
Right. But it wasn't just the physical hit. It was that Jake had the elite self-awareness while he was literally on the floor to assess it and say, whoa, that was hard.
He didn't panic. He accepted the physical toll.
Exactly. But there is a fundamental truth here that the source emphasizes. Boxing is a unique skill that simply cannot be speedrun.
No matter how many followers you have.
Right. Influencers can bring new eyes and massive money to the sport, but they cannot artificially generate that deep muscle memory.
You can't hack the decades of sacrifice, the micro movements, the defensive reflexes. That only comes from thousands of hours in the gym. Ryan actually said that even if he were to develop severe dementia late in life, the very last thing to leave his brain would be the instinctual knowledge of how to slip a punch.
That is just profound. It's hardwired into his most basic survival instincts.
It's literally part of his DNA at this point.
Oh, it really is. And that brings us full circle on this deep dive. We've explored how early, uncompromising sacrifice builds this undeniable mastery.
And how unchecked obsession can propel you to the absolute top, but also drag you into devastating mental spirals.
Exactly. Elite athletes have to navigate this truly bizarre ecosystem of fame, immense wealth, and physical danger. But for you listening, even if you never plan to step into a boxing ring, the lessons apply to whatever you do.
We all have our own arenas.
We do. We all operate with a context window of obsession, the limited amount of intense focus our brains can handle. Managing where you point that focus determines the trajectory of your life.
Which leaves us with one final lingering question for you to ponder on your own.
Go for it.
If extreme singular obsession from the age of 7 is the mandatory entry fee for historic greatness, what happens to the human being inside the athlete when the career eventually ends? If you are entirely built for the ring, who are you when the bell rings for the last time?
Wow. A heavy question to mull over as we wrap up today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Make sure you keep an eye on where your own autopilot is taking you, and we will catch you next time.